Welcome to Unlocking My Potential, a podcast all about women in STEM sharing their stories, struggles, and the lessons that shape their paths. I'm Natalie, and I'm really glad to have you here today.
Thanks for having me. I think it's an honor to be here. Like I met Natalie. We overlapped just 6 months at Florida Poly, but we became good friends. So I'm very excited to be here. For those who don't know me, my name is Isabela Anselmo. I am originally from Brazil. I was born and raised in Belo Horizonte, which is one of the largest cities in Brazil, in the southeast of Brazil. I spent 24 years of my life there. And Belo Horizonte is also home for the university that I studied, which is the Federal University of Minas Gerais, one of the largest and most prestigious universities in Brazil. I did my undergrad in electrical engineering there. After I graduated, I moved to the north of Brazil, worked a little bit there before moving to the US over 6 years ago, where I went to study my master's also in electrical engineering at Florida Polytechnic University. After that, I graduated and moved to Minnesota, where I live nowadays with my husband and our two cats. I work as a senior power systems engineer at a consultancy firm called Talos Energy for over 3 years and a half now, and I really, really enjoy my work in the power systems sector.
First, thank you so much for being here. Really, really excited. You have such a unique story of where you come from, your different degrees and area of work and study. So I'm super excited for you to be able to share your full story. And I love how you already mentioned a little bit about your degree, where you live now, and kind of like your story a little bit. Perfect introduction, perfect way to start.
Awesome.
I appreciate that. And like you said, again, we're both went to Florida Polytechnic University. We're both from Brazil. So we have those things in common, which is awesome. But at the same time, very unique and different experiences when it comes to university, which is one of the topics that I'm very excited for us to touch base today of you just explaining a little bit of what it is to go into a tech university in Brazil compared to the US. But before we jump into that aspect, I always like to start the episodes going all the way into the beginning a little bit. So, what sparked your interest into a STEM education, specifically an electric engineer degree?
This is a story that goes back a lot of years. um, so I come from a family of engineers. My granddad was an engineer. He graduated in the 50s. I don't think they even had like differentiating between engineers. He was just an engineer. My dad is also an engineer. He's a civil engineer, and I have a lot of uncles and a aunt that they are also engineers. But from my generation, I was the only one that followed this path. Like my brother is a lawyer. I had other cousins that are lawyers, a doctor, psychologist. So everyone went in different paths. I was the only one that followed the family quote unquote tradition.
Mhm.
But when I was 8 years old, my dad worked half of his career in the power sector, specifically with hydropower plants. And he took me to one of the hydropower plants that he was part of the construction just when they were about to start operation. So I remember it vividly, like the memory is pretty clear in my head of me going in the power plant, seeing the turbine, the generators. And I remember thinking that this is so cool. Maybe I want to work with that someday. But when I was in high school, I went to a school that most people wanted to go to med school. And I had that in my head. Maybe I also want to do med school. But in my senior year, I started having classes on physics that were related to power. So like voltage, resistors, all of those very introduction part of electrical engineer. And that sparked all my interest back when I was a kid. And I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. And I'm very happy I followed this calling on that physics class because I think I was meant to go on this path. I really like working in the energy sector. And this is basically how I ended up being an electrical engineer.
That is awesome. Kind of funny how you're the only one that followed the path
Yeah.
of being an engineer, but also very unique going into an electrical engineer. I think that a lot of people go into I don't want to say more of the normal engineer degrees, but I think it's very, very unique and it's a less amount of people that actually go into electrical because it's such a niche kind of
Yeah.
industry. So that is amazing. And then in high school, so I know that in Brazil the process is very different in the US. So can you
Yes.
share a little bit how the process works of when you are in high school, making decisions of going to the university? How does that all of work?
So the process to get in university in Brazil is quite different from the US. To be honest, I'm not very sure how it works here since I didn't go through that process. And also in Brazil, I did that over 13 years ago. So I think some things changed. So I'm going to tell about my experience and some of the things I know from being in Brazil for so long. In Brazil, the best universities are considered the ones that are federal or state universities, so the public ones. And we don't pay anything to study on that ones. They are all funded by the government, so your taxes basically pay for education. There are a lot of prestigious universities like this. There are also private universities. But to get on the public system, we have this unified test that you do. They have it once a year and it's in 2 Sundays. When I did it, it was a Saturday and a Sunday. So it is a difference now. And they cover everything you studied during high school, right? And also you have a writing essay you have to do. It's a pretty difficult task. You spend hours doing it. And with a score, you can apply for those universities. And I think some private universities are accepting this test right now too. One thing that is nice because when I did my admission process, they were starting to use this national test. So it was not all universities that were adopting it. And we kind of had to choose what universities we were interested in applying for, and we had to do the specific test for that university. That kind of made you have to apply to a field because you had to do so many tests to get in, and you could pass in a bunch, and then you have to choose one, right? But now I think it's better for students because you do just one, and then you can also go to study far away. If you're someone from south of Brazil, you can go to northeast or vice versa. But this also made the process a bit more difficult because now it's more people applying for the same amount of spots that they have in the university. So I think nowadays it might be more difficult to get into the university that it was when I did, but they made it more democratic that more people can try to get into the university.
Nice. That is very different than here because here you, at least in undergrad, you do, which not, I don't know how it works now neither. Because I mean, yeah, when I did it was a long time ago. But back in the day, you have an SAT and or ACT, depending on the university. But those tests is only math, science, and English and an essay. So it's not everything that you learn through high school. It's just those main languages and those main topics. And then you get a score, and then based with that score, you apply for the universities. And so they take into consideration those tests, the GPA, which is like all your grades, and that's pretty much it. And you apply for every single university. So I kind of really like how in Brazil it is one big test that you can utilize for every single university in the country. And the thing that I also like is how a lot of mainly the best universities are the public universities because it makes, people really study and really work hard to get to those main universities. Where in the US, it's a little bit different where the private universities are the best, but that comes with the financial cost. So I love that you went through that. And then you selected the university that you went to, I'm assuming. And so how was the process of being a university in Brazil? How many years does it take?
Hmm.
How was your experience there?
Yeah, I was approved the university that I wanted to. Um, At that time, it was still a bit different. We had the test, and then a few people were selected. Then you had another test that was like 10 questions just focused on our area of study. So I had to do physics, chemistry, math, and Portuguese. All Portuguese are always required. So it was bit time consuming, but I was very happy when I was selected because it was the university that I wanted to study. It's considered one of, I think, top 5 in Brazil. and it is from my hometown. So I didn't have to move to another city. I could stay living with my parents, which was very convenient. So I was studying basically for free and not spending money having to move to another place. That was really good. University was intense. In Brazil, engineering takes 5 years. And I think here in the US, it's 4 years only, but we take 5 years. Our first 2.5 years are very focused on the core classes that I think it's usually the same or very similar to all engineer majors. And then you go more deep in the area that your engineer is about. So I did like calculus with people that would study civil engineer, industrial engineer. And then once I was in my fourth year, I started circuits. So it's more like electrical engineer focused. The university was really big. So I remember for the first semesters doing calculus and coding classes, it was a bit overwhelming because some classes would have up to 100 students. Yeah, it was a bit hard, but I think everything went well. I did fail some classes. I know here in the US, people get very nervous about failing classes, but back in Brazil, in engineering is not something that is very, it's kind of common to fail a few classes in the first semesters because it's very different from what you're used to in high school. But in the end, I was able to graduate in the time that I was supposed to. So it didn't hold me back. And I think it was good that I had to do some classes twice because then I really learned.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, I think.
When you fail a class in Brazil, what is the process? So, is the school also semester based?
Yes.
And then if you fail, you have to retake the next semester, kind of the same process as the US?
Yes. And the biggest problem about failing classes is that some classes hold you to others. So there, for example, if you fail circuits one, you cannot do circuits two and other classes that are related to that there are requisites for you to do the next class. So I think that was my biggest fear that if you keep failing classes, it will take you forever to graduate because it's holding you back. But that was not my case. In the end, I was able to graduate. But I just want to mention that to say to students that don't freak out that much that if in the beginning you fail some
Yep.
classes because calculus and other things, physics can be
They're
very
very
hard in the
hard.
beginning.
Yeah.
But in the end, it works. I graduated. My GPA was not that terrible. I got a good GPA. So
That's
yeah,
what I was gonna ask too. Do they have also a GPA kind of score at the end?
they have a similar thing as a
Okay.
GPA. But to be honest, it's not something that people take that much look at it. At. It can be very helpful if you are trying to get to the next semester. I want to take this class that there's a lot of people that wants to take and they don't have that many seats on the class. So they usually give to the people that have highest GPA.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. That's very
And then
different, yeah.
also for the best hours. So maybe they have this class in the morning and at night, everyone wants to take it in the morning, for
Yeah.
example. So people that has high GPA gonna get the best hour, and then you're gonna have to do it at night. That happened to me.
Oh, wow, that is very different. And can you withdraw from classes? Or you have to take
Yes,
the
they have.
class the whole semester?
You have a period. I
Okay,
think the first month,
okay,
if you start taking class and you decided that's not what I want to do, you can withdraw it. But I think there is a maximum of credits that you can do it.
yeah.
So I'm not sure. I never did it.
Okay. Okay. So that's a little bit similar because I know for me, it's literally what you said. One, I was so scared of failing, but at the same time, I think it was for sure one of the calculus. I don't remember one, two, three, or how many it was, but it was two of my calc classes that I literally withdraw. Because I knew I was like, one, I don't know what's happening. And if you don't fully understand the concept of the class, everything else is gonna be so hard, right? Because it just add
Yeah.
on to those. So I know for me, at least, it was kind of the same thing. I was freaking out because I had to withdraw and I was very scared of also pushing me back. And I know in the US, depending on how many credits you have, there is at the end of the 4 years, if you pass a certain amount of credits, you have to pay double of the price of the credit, which I had to do that too. So that was the whole thing. So there is a limit of how many classes you should withdraw before you have to pay that amount. But at the same time, I'm glad I did because if I didn't retake the class, I would not have understood anything. And I'll for sure just fail classes afterwards and later on. So, yes, we all freak out because college is way more challenging than any other subject
Yeah.
in school you do. But at the same time, it's okay to withdraw. It's okay if you fail. A lot of people do. Too many people
Yeah.
do, especially depending on the degree that you're getting. It's just not something that we talk about a lot, and it's something that a lot of us freak out, especially in the beginning. But it's a
Yes.
common thing. It's a common thing for you to get your test scores and the whole class fail the same exam. That happens a lot too, depending on the class. So it's all of us together, all of us kind of failing together a lot of times. So it's kind of like a it's okay. It's not that bad.
Yeah. And as you said, in the beginning, it's kind of common. And I think after a while, you understand how university works, especially like I went to Catholic school my whole life, and they would give everything in your hands, the subjects. The teacher would be very, this is the material and explain everything, details. And then you get to university, you kind of have to learn how to study on your own. So I think for me, the first semesters were me adapting to this new way of trying to study and trying to understand that we don't have that close relation with professors as we do in school. So I think after a while, when you understand how university works, what is your best way to study, I think everything just flows. And then you usually see that people in their last years, they don't fail
Yep.
classes. It's more the beginning.
No, I love that you made that point because that is super true. In university, it's when you fully understand how you study, how you learn. A lot of people
Yeah.
they like to write to understand a topic or just listening to it or visual people. So you kind of learn, okay, this is the best way that I understand topics. You start finding out different ways of studying and it gets better. Classes to me, I felt like it got harder because the topics are more in detail,
Yes.
but it gets easier at the same time. The topics are harder, but it gets easier because you learn how to do it, how to study, how to do
Yes.
university. So I love that you mentioned that because it's very true. It's a very different way of you learning and studying that you've never had before in your life. So it's super new to everyone. And then from you getting your degree, you're studying to be an electrical engineer. How does it work to have different internships and processes in different works with throughout university? Is it kind of similar to the US?
I think it's kind of similar. We don't have summer internships. I
Okay.
think we do have some, but they're not as popular as in the US. Usually, on your last 2 years, you can do an internship. So basically, is a part-time worker. I did an internship that I worked 6 hours a day, another one that I work 4 hours a day on the week. And it's usually when you have less classes in school as well, because you are finishing your degree, right? But the process, I think it's kind of similar to here. And for me, the two internships I did, they were very valuable for my work afterwards. I work in both times in consultancy, so I was really close to engineers and they would ask me to be together with them to see how the work went. So very grateful for the two companies that I had a chance to be an intern. And it was nice, especially my second internship that I stayed there for a year, because it was when I was taking a lot of very specific power system classes. So I could see the things I was studying on campus being applied on my day to day work. So I was like, oh, okay, now I know why I had to take that specific class and how this works in the real time situation. So I think the internships for me were essential to land where I am right now because a lot of things that I learned back then, I still use on my day to day.
Nice. And how is it different? I guess everything that you've learned in the past and you utilize it in Brazil and all in Portuguese and trying to change it up and utilizing everything in English now. Was that a little bit of a challenge?
I think I was more scared than I should been. I studied English since I was a kid, so I had a lot of exposure. I always watched movies, listened to music, so English was a big part of my day to day. But when I started my master's in Florida Poly, I was very nervous on taking classes in English. Like one thing it's sitting and watching Friends, which is the day to day English. The other thing is like engineering in English, right? But at university in Brazil, a lot of the books we would refer, sometimes we could only find the editions in English. So I already had some exposure. So it was not that bad. I had to get used to some terminology though. And I would always have my phone on me. And if the professor said something I did not know, I would Google Translate it.
Yeah.
That happened uh, a few,
That is so interesting because to me, I see the opposite, right? I went to high school and college in the US, so I learned all the terms, the technical terms in English. But then every time that I talk to my family and they're like, "Okay, so tell me, what do you do?" I'm like, "I don't know." Like, I
you have
don't
to
know how to
translate.
explain what I do in Portuguese. But that's just super interesting how some of the books that you use at university was in English. So when you went to university in Brazil to be an engineer, was English a pre-requirement as well? Was it part of the education?
No, it's
Okay.
not. Everything's in Portuguese.
Okay.
Yeah. English, when you do that big test I told you to get in school, there you can choose to do English or Spanish, but it's just a small part of the test. So no, you don't need to be fluent in English
Okay.
to be in university.
No, that's really good to know. And then you did your internships, you get all this amazing exposure and experience, especially utilizing now that everything that you're learning on the books into actual practice. At that point, you already have some experience, you graduate, and I know your first job was also in Brazil, right? So how is the
Yes.
process of doing your internships, graduating, to applying for jobs? Is there anything specific do you have to do to apply for a job? And then to getting started with that first full position in Brazil.
Yeah. So I think the job market in Brazil is very different from here in the US. And it can be very hard to get a job when you get out of school, depending on how the market is looking. So when I graduated, the market was not thriving. Most people want to stay in the southeast of Brazil, which is kind of where most of the money in the country is. Big companies, big industry, it's around São Paulo, Rio. So people want to go there. So usually there's a lot of people and not that many jobs. So a lot of big companies, they have these trainee programs. And once you are out of university, you can apply for it. And then you stay kind of, I think, a year being a trainee, and then you become full employee. So when I was about to graduate, I started applying to all types of trainee programs I could find, which is very normal. All my classmates were doing the same. But I was not worried about having to move to another part of Brazil. That was never a problem for me. I knew there are some people that's like, I'm not gonna apply for this one because it's very far away. No, that was not a thing for me. I knew that I was not going to be hired at the place I was an intern because it was a very small office and they would only have a position open if someone left. And I knew that no one would leave. So that's why I was not counting on being hired in my internship. And then I started looking. Um, and these trainee programs, they can be very time consuming because you have to do an English test and then you have to do knowledge test. And then you have to do a test to see if you're compatible with the company. And then if you're selected on that, you usually have to go someplace, which is normally in Sao Paulo, and do this group dynamic that they're going to evaluate how you are. And then they select you for more and more interval process. It's very time consuming. And I'm from Belo Horizonte, so I had to travel basically every week to try to do those type of things and it can be expensive. And I had to do my capstone. So I remember it was a very stressful time of my life. I don't even to think about it. Yes, but one of the companies that I was trying the training program that I was not selected, they had the opening position for direct hire, which was in the north of Brazil. And they saw my resume and one of my friends that worked for that company, he went to the same university as me. He told me you should apply. I think based on your internship, you have a good fit with this position. So I was like, okay, let's give it a try. And yeah, I was a good fit. I was hired. So I was hired before I graduated. It was good that I ended up uh just I finished school in December. In January, I moved to another city to start my work. So I was working for a distribution utility in the north of Brazil as a system planner. So I learned so much on that job. It was amazing. one thing is that at the same time I was looking for these positions to work after I graduated, I was also looking for a master's degree outside of Brazil.
Oh, okay.
This Yes, this is because I always wanted to have the opportunity to study abroad. So when I started university in Brazil, the Brazilian government, they had a program that would send university students to other countries to study for a year.
Okay.
If you translate raw translation, the name is Science Without Borders.
Mhm.
So I really wanted to do that. And I wanted to go to the US or Canada because English was easy for me and I really want to do it. But when I got enough credits to apply for the program ended. So I always had that on my head, like, I want to have experience to study abroad. I ended up having the opportunity to go to Canada to study English,
Okay.
but I really wanted to go to university. So when I was on that thing, applying to trainee programs and getting rejected, it's like, maybe I should apply for master's. Who knows? This is when I met Mustafa from Poly, and he told me, yeah, apply here. And then I started applying from Poly. So when I started my job as a system planner, for Brazil, I was in the process of applying for the master's at Poly.
Okay.
But I didn't know if it would work because in my head, it's like, this is a very far away dream. Going to university in the United States with a scholarship,
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Now that is one of the things that I really like about a university, to be honest, and the program that they had. That it wasn't just opening the doors for international students, but it was opening the doors with a scholarship, bringing people to give them an opportunity to not just come to the US, but get a master's in a STEM education. All free ride, right? Which is something that what other university does that? Not a lot.
Yeah.
I know there are some universities that do scholarships, even for international students, but it's a percentage of a scholarship, or you have to go
Hmm.
through a whole big process. Where Florida Poly was getting just amazing students from very specific countries as well that Mustafa was partnering up with to do the master's program. So that is awesome. I love that it was something that you always had in the back of your mind of I want to go into a program, and I think always giving people that exposure of studying a different country, studying a different language, having just all these amazing experiences brings so much more into the future, right? Into your professional career. And look where you are now. So I'm glad I love that you did that. So you start applying for this master's at Florida while you're working already on your first time on your first position. How
Yes.
long were you actually at that company before you get accepted and you decided to move to Florida to do your master's?
I actually worked there for just 8 months. So I started applying in January, and for you to apply, at least at Poly, but I think most universities will work like that. You have to do the TOEFL exam, which is your English as a second language. I think nowadays they accept other types of exams, but when I did, it was just a TOEFL, which is a very annoying task because it's very specific. Sometimes you can be really good at English, but if you didn't study for the task, you can fail. So they put you like to listen to these specific audios of situations in the university in a class, and then you have to answer questions. So you have to prepare exactly for the TOEFL exam. And each university has a minimum score that you have to. So I did the test. I got the minimum that Poly asked for. I also had to get my diploma and my transcripts from my university in Brazil translated with an official translator and then send it to do an accreditation in the US. So basically, they're gonna check if your electrical engineering degree in Brazil is the same as an electrical engineering degree in the US. So I also had to do that. There were more parts of the process that I don't remember right now, but it took around 6 months. I remember when it was June, I was approved and I was kind of shocked. And I had just started dating my now husband at the time. He worked for the same company and we were dating for 3 months. And then I saw him like, oh, I might leave the country. And he was very supportive because he knew I always wanted to study abroad. He said, no, you have to go. So I waited to put my in Brazil is 4 week notice. So I waited until I got my visa approved. So I got my visa early July, put my 4 week notice, work until the end of July, and moved to the US in August.
Wow. And then school started in August too. So
Yes,
everything was
I
so
I
fast.
arrived like 3 days before classes started.
That is so
I remember for
funny.
the first 2 days I didn't have a pillow because I had a car, I couldn't go to Walmart, and then I slept with my clothes.
Wow, everything just went so fast from graduating to basically you worked fully 8 months, but within like 6 months, you're already planning into the next step, the next phase of your life.
Yes.
So
I say
that's
that
really
the
quick.
my year of 2019 was very weird because I moved to another city. It was my first time being 100% independent. I had my own apartment.
Mhm.
I was paying for my bills. I had a awesome job, and then I met my boyfriend, which became my husband in the end. And then left that job, moved to another country, and still had to do long distance. So it's kind of intense.
Yeah, so much. 1 year, 20 million changes, which
Yes.
wow, that's a lot. But how was the experience after you already have your bachelor's, which was 5 years of your life, and you had that experience of going to university in Brazil, you had internships, you had your job. How was your master's program in the US at Florida Poly different than every other experience you had in the past?
So I really enjoy doing that master's. I think it opened a lot of doors for me. And one thing that I really like is Poly's a very small university. I know it's got bigger since I left, but the master's program, there were some classes that was just me and other 3 people.
Wow.
So for me, that was used to get classes with 100 people. I basically had private classes,
Mhm.
and I remember my first class was with it was power electronics with Dr. Rashid, and I was shocked because I used his book back in Brazil, and I was like, I can't believe I am having a class with the guy that wrote the book that I was back home.
That is so
I I remember that when I got this realization, I was like, I'm gonna enjoy every single moment of this opportunity that I have right now because this is a one lifetime opportunity, and I know that there are a bunch of people that wanted to be here, and I got the chance, so I'm gonna do my best. And I went to every single class. I sent it in front of the professor and talked to them all the time. I think I was even a bit annoying to them, but I really enjoyed it because university was so new. All the equipment was pretty brand new. So it was amazing. I was a teaching assistant for the Circuits 2 lab for the 2 years that I was there. And I loved that job because Circuits 2 was a class that I really enjoyed. And I remember that when I did my lab in my undergrad, it was not that exciting. So when I was the teaching assistant, I wanted the students to get the best that they could because I was like, you guys have the best equipment, all the opportunities here. Let's try to do the best class possible. And the professor that I was helping at the time, he saw that I was getting too excited. So he would sometimes would leave me to give the class. And it was so, so cool. I love that so much.
that is awesome.
Uh, Sometimes I miss it.
Yep. There's a lot of little moments in college that you're like, "Oh, I wish I could still do that part." Yeah. The
Yeah.
one thing that you mentioned, which kind of just touched in my head a little bit, is how different it is talking to you that you come from a different country and how much you appreciate some things about going into a very new university with a lot of new equipment and amazing equipment and a professor that wrote a book that you study in Brazil. I think and I don't want to make this very general, but I think a lot of people that are from the US or have different experiences that is not like the one you had don't appreciate the little things like that. They don't appreciate because
Yeah.
it's like every university has a new equipment for the most part. You know, all the professors are these really big professors and writers and have really great books where when you come from a different country, and this is funny because I've talked to some people from different countries, we appreciate all these little things that a lot of people don't hear. And we end up just literally, like you said, end up feeling like, okay, I'm having this one in a lifetime experience. I need to appreciate every little detail. I need to like present in every little detail. I think a lot of people in the US they don't. A lot of people
Mhm.
take for granted a little bit, or they just don't appreciate those small things. And just seeing the excitement as you're talking about it, like all the specific details that you really enjoyed, just puts a whole different perspective, right? Of like what it is coming from a different country and experience going to a university in the US and kind of going through it. And I love that you took that lab and you made it your own and you made it fun and you're able to teach it and you learned everything that you had in your undergrad and how you wanted to make everything so different for all the students. So
Yeah.
I'm glad. That is super awesome because I remember those labs were hard. The lab classes for circuits were so difficult because I had to do circuits 1 and 2. But when you had a good TA that was excited about what they're doing, it made everything so much different for the whole class for everyone. So I love that you had that experience. And then you're doing your master's, and that is a 2-year program. You were a TA, you're having some experiences within the university. How was the process of going from that to your first job in the US? And how
Mhm.
did you make some of those decisions of where to go next?
So, big part of my master's was working on my thesis, right? And I tried to do all the classes that I had to do before my last semester so I could focus 100% on my thesis at the end. And when I started the semester that I was basically just a TA and working on my thesis, I started thinking of jobs, but I was not 100% sure if I wanted to stay in the US because remember, I'm doing long distance. So my boyfriend was back in Brazil and we worked for the same company in Brazil. And I left in really good terms in my company. So I knew if I wanted to go back, probably not for the same position, but in another position in the company, probably had the door open. So we were talking about it. Should I go back? Should I not? And then he encouraged me to try to look for jobs. Let's just see. We don't know how the job market is in the US, how interviews go, but let's try. And I said, okay. And then LinkedIn was where I found my job. So I applied for this job as a power systems engineer in a company that is based here in the US, in Minnesota. And I did an interview and I was approved in February. And I was a bit shocked because I would only start in August. And this is should wouldn't happen in Brazil. Usually they need a person. If you're not available, you just lost your chance. So I was like, are you guys sure? Wait for me. And then they're like, yeah, I'm gonna wait for you to graduate and get your work authorization. And I was like, okay, cool. And then um I started talking to my boyfriend and he said, I think if we wanna try both of us working in another country, this is the time. We were not even in our 30s yet. We don't have kids. We don't have nothing to lose. If it doesn't work, we go back to Brazil with more experience. So since I knew I was going to move to Minnesota, he started looking for masters in Minnesota. And he got approved in a master's here. So when I graduated and moved to Minnesota, he came all the way from Brazil to Minnesota with me.
Wow.
So that's how we ended up here.
That is awesome. I love how, one, you made the long distance relationship work. Because I know long distance, even if it's the city next door, it's already hard enough.
Yeah,
Imagine
it's
in a
very
whole
hard.
nother country. In a whole nother country, while you're very busy with university, while life is crazy busy. So I love that you guys made it work. And I love that you took the chance of, let me apply. But if it what if it works, right? It's I always say that a no you already have. But what if you
Yes.
actually get that yes? You just never know. So you should always try. So I love that you tried, you got that position, you moved to Minnesota and then he moved to get his master's. And I know you guys been there for a little while now. And I lived in Minnesota before too, so I know a little bit of how that feels like. But how is it for you of moving from Brazil to Florida, which is super hot, to then Minnesota, which is one of the coldest places in the whole country, and still staying strong there, which I know is very challenging. But how was the transition from graduating with your master's starting your full-time job now in a whole different state in the US with your boyfriend now with you, which is a whole different part of your relationship as well, being so close together. So how was that part of your life?
Yeah, that changed things, but also made it much better because before I was by myself. I had an amazing roommate, Eduarda, and then Zuzu. They were really good to me when I needed them, but at the same time, like I was by myself. So when he arrived, that made all the difference because it's when we got engaged and then we started living together. Um, I felt that now I have family with me.
Mhm.
I'm not on this alone. So that was super important. I think this is one of the hardest things about living in abroad is being away from your family, especially coming from Brazil, Latin America. We are usually very family driven. My family is stupidly close. We do everything together. So for me, it was kind of hard. And there was the pandemic in the middle. So I was not spending Christmas with them and stuff. So it was hard. So when he arrived, I felt complete again, like now I can do this. And moving to Minnesota was intense because, as I said, like Florida, it's hot. The weather is pretty similar to Brazil. It's even colder than Brazil sometimes. So
Interesting.
at least where I live, where I'm from in Brazil. So I didn't have that much problems adapting to the weather in Florida. But then when we moved in Minnesota in January, so we were right in the middle of
Yep.
winter. That was so hard because we were getting temperatures that was 0 Fahrenheit, minus 20 Celsius. And it's like, this is so hard. And I think what got to me most, now I'm more adept. It's been 4 years that we live here, but I wouldn't say that I'm 100% used to it,
Mhm.
are the short days. The days it gets very short during the winter. And I remember in the job that I started when I moved to Minnesota, I had to go to the office and I would work in a clubicle.
Mhm.
So I would arrive at 7:30, everything was dark. And then when I leave at 5, everything's dark. So I wouldn't see the sun. And that was making me so depressed. I remember telling Paolo, I'm not sure I can do this. This is so hard. But when we started making friends and adapting more, things got better. But he was very essential to me in the first months here in Minnesota.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad that you're able to feel a little bit closer to family and a little bit less lonely with him there. Because I know it's really, really challenging. Like, the reason why I moved to Texas after Minnesota was literally because of my family. I wanted to be closer to my family. Living far away was so hard, was so challenging, and to me, I'm is still in the same country, right? I'm just a short fly away, but it was still so far. I can't even imagine being far away when it comes to like a whole different country to your family. But my experience moving to Minnesota was a little bit similar to where I moved in January. Moved in January 2020. For me, I moved 2 months before COVID. So I only went to the office for 2 full months. But it was literally like that. You arrive and it's dark, and you leave and it's dark, and you don't see the sun 5 days out of the week, you don't see light, you don't see the sun, and want it or not, it makes everyone depressed. Everyone was taking lots of vitamin D. A lot of
Yes,
people in my office, they start getting the sun lights or whatever those are.
I do have my on right now.
Literally, you have to get all these extra things to boost your emotions a little bit because it's so challenging. The lack of light, I think, it was worse than the cold. And a lot of people just don't understand. I'm like, the cold, you put the proper clothes, the snow, it's annoying, but the lack of sun,
Yeah, I
that's
agree
challenging.
100%. I can do with the cold. I don't love it,
Yeah.
but I can handle it.
Yeah. But the
But
sun,
the sun, it's something that
yeah,
gets
that was really, really hard for me. And you moved to Minnesota in 2021, right?
2022, January
2022,
of
okay, so
2022.
COVID had already passed. Okay, no, that's awesome because Minnesota during
Yeah,
COVID was rough.
yeah,
That was so challenging to me because, 1, you couldn't be indoors, everything was closed, but it was also winter, so you couldn't be outdoors, so people are literally stuck at home. I was stuck at home for months until the weather got better and people started walking in the streets, so that was a whole craziness, but
yeah. I cannot imagine.
yeah, but COVID was over, so that's good. Hey, that's a positive one.
Yes,
And then you start working at your new job, and you said that that was the first company and job that you had in Minnesota, so you transferred to another company, right?
Yes. So, as I told you, I was working for SCADA development, which does software that control power plants and distribution transmission system. But I was more on the like hardware stuff, which was not much what I had studied for. So I felt like, although the company was good, my boss was really nice. I had nice coworkers. I was not working with what I dedicated so much work with. And I was like, I'm not happy here. So again, LinkedIn, I started looking for other companies and then I found Telos. I applied. I talked to their HR lady. She said I was a good fit and that she would put me in contact with one of the founding partners because it's a small company. And that's how I met my now boss. And I remember that the first conversation we hit it up really well. Like he really liked my experience in another country that could contribute a lot for stuff that we might face. After with that phone call, I met the whole company, which is like it was 8 people at the time. And I did a presentation of something that I worked in Brazil while I was in that company that I was in 8 months, which there was a project that was super challenged that I did on that small time, which is a project that I'm still very proud of when I talk about it.
I love
So I presented it and they ended up making an offer and I've been with them for 2 years and a half and I love every second of it.
that is amazing. That I think that's one of the biggest things. It's having a job that it connects to something that you're actually passionate about, that's something that you actually
Yes,
enjoy. That makes such a big difference of you doing your job every single day, 5 days a week. Because what people don't notice is you spend so much so much time
it's a
every single
third of
day.
your life you
Literally.
spend
Yeah.
working.
Yeah. Like, literally, you're gonna retire then years and years and years and decades from now. So a huge part of your life is going to be spending so many hours at work, and if you don't enjoy
Yeah.
it, that's hard.
Yes. And I think this transition of jobs, it made a lot of sense because I was in a different country, far away from my family, in a very cold, kind of depressing place. And I was not happy at my job. And it's like, what am I doing here? So I think when I moved to Talos, kind of the planets aligned because summer started and we had friends and I started working with a lot of things I liked. And I always like to think of Talos was it's a very similar thing from the consultancy that I was an intern in Brazil.
Nice.
So I remember thinking, like, now I work with what I really want. And everyone is kind of young and very knowledge driven, wants to do the best for the company. So it's a very good work environment place to be. And I think that makes all the difference. It's one of the reasons I really like my job. Also, I have the opportunity to go to some conferences. So I had in my head that maybe one day I would go to like academia.
Mhm.
But now working on a consultancy, I think I kind of emerged the best of two worlds because I am in an industry where you learn a lot, but I still can contribute with papers and things.
Oh.
So I think I found my place. So it's very cool.
So, give me a little bit more details of that part. So, how does your job works where you can mix and match the technical work with the papers, with giving
Yes,
presentations?
of course, it's much more like in industry than doing papers, but we do have sometimes opportunity. Maybe we did a very nice work that we developed a new tool
Mm.
or a very strategic analysis that we created. Then we can write a paper on that. Usually I always participate. I'm still a IEEE member. So every year I go to the IEEE Power Society general meeting and I have the chance to be a panelist 3 years in a row.
Nice.
So this is really cool because I can present stuff that I did at work for other engineers. And I also was in SIGRE, which is another organization. I was able to be part of the paper competition. I went even in the final. So I still have the chance to contribute on that front, which is really nice.
That is awesome. Wow, I did not know that. Well, congratulations for getting to the finals. So
Thank you.
that is super cool. And that is awesome that you get to mix a little bit. So you get to mix your actual job, you get to mix one thing that I really love is how you're able to share. your knowledge and your work into the
Yes.
conferences. I know a lot of companies and a lot of, depending the industry that you work for, is very locked in. We cannot
Mm-hmm.
talk about it externally, but I'm glad that you're able to teach other engineers to share your knowledge, share
Mm-hmm.
everything that you guys are doing as a company, um, to all those conferences, and that you're a panelist. Are you planning on going into the conferences again and do other presentations as well in the future?
Yeah, we try to go every year, at least to the big IEEE meeting. There are some others if we have the opportunity we go. But yeah, I really enjoy those conferences because of this knowledge exchange. Of course, there are some stuff that you cannot share, which is maybe sensitive data or or other things, but usually the engineering part we can share.
Mhm.
And I've met so many amazing people on these conferences and learned so much with stuff that I use on my day to day, which is really, really nice. And I always find interesting to see what is the hot topic of the year. So there is this year that we were just talking about grid forming inverters, and now the big topic is data centers. So you can see the power systems evolving in every, so for me, year to another, the big topic changes. So it's nice to be there because you are always up to date with the latest trends of power systems. And I like to think of the power systems as kind of a live organism.
Mhm.
So it's always evolving and we have to adapt. So many years ago, we just had synchronous machines connected. And then with renewable energy, we have much more software and hardware, and then we have to adapt. But to adapt, you don't turn your power system off to adapt. You have to adapt while it is operating. So it's pretty nice to be in those conferences and see what the transmission operator is saying or what the generator owner is saying and not researchers are saying. So it's very nice.
That is awesome. Wow. I know every single conference that I usually go to, it's more on the broad subject. I've never been to a conference that is very specific topics or degrees or anything like that. So the conversations and topics are a little bit different, but it's really cool how the conference that you go into is very specific to your degree, to electrical engineers. I've always had this in the back of my mind, to be honest. My father is an electrical engineer, so that's kind of what I feel and think personally. But I think it's such a niche type of engineering topic that the way that I see it is if someone is an electrical engineer, they're very passionate about it. Very, very passionate because it's one of the
That's
hard,
actually true.
right? It to me is one of the hardest degrees that you can get because it's so specific into, like, it's so broad because power can be everything, right? It's everywhere. But at the same time, it's so specific into what you can
Mhm.
do with electrical engineer. I think, for example, I compare a lot to like computer engineering degree. You can go into everywhere. You can do so much with it. Where electrical engineer bulb was a little bit smaller. And right? And
Yeah,
like the knowledge that you have is very specific to the electricity and electrical part of it. And
yeah,
every electrical engineer that I've met my whole entire life, and I say that literally my whole life because my dad is one, so passionate. The most passionate people I've ever met of the topics that they study, the work that they do, and the specific types of technology. It's so cool to see every time that my dad talks and he talks to his friends and they all geek out about stuff and I'm just there like, you guys love this. It's a whole different type of love. So
yeah.
I can't even
That's
imagine you
true.
going to a conference with all these really passionate people just talking about the same kind of topics and new technologies that comes with it. So that is really cool.
Yeah, you have to check my chat with my husband. He's also electrical engineer, so sometimes our chat is just a bunch of pictures of towers that we saw on the
I
street
was literally
sending to
gonna
each other.
ask that because I know he's an electrical engineer. Now, do you guys both geek out towards all this technical stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. Like electrical engineer is niche, but you still have different paths inside
Mhm.
of it. So we are in the power systems. You can also go to microelectronics or controls.
Mhm.
So there are other areas, but our area is even more niche, right? Which is power systems. And we are both in power systems, but we do completely different things. So I am more on the transmission planning studies, interconnection studies, more on the planner side, and he works with design of transmission lines, which is another very specific thing. He works a lot with civil engineers, for example, and our work is different but complementary.
Mhm.
So sometimes we share with each other what we are doing,
Yeah.
and he knows a lot of things that I don't know, and I know a lot of things that he doesn't know. So it's pretty cool. So sometimes we are driving and then we see a transmission line, and then he starts explaining to me how these poles are connected and this is the voltage level. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so nice. And then if we see a power plant, yes. So yeah, we are very big nerds on
I love
electrical
that.
engineering topics.
Honestly, and I always said that I think electrical engineers, due to how passionate you guys are, you need to be with someone that is just as passionate. Sometimes it's not another electrical engineer. Like my mom is not an electrical engineer, but she's very passionate about her own stuff, and they both get passion and geek out about things and conversation. To me, it's just so fascinating just seeing electrical engineers talk. To be honest, I don't think I feel that level of passion towards anything in my life the way that you guys do. It's super awesome to see. And I love that you guys both geek out about stuff and that you guys are both into the power space, but like you said, very different niches and can just
Hmm.
still teach each other a lot of different things. So that is really cool. Yeah. And now that you have been doing this job for a little bit, you love the work that you do, you're able to present in conferences. What does the future look like? What are you planning on doing next? Is this the type of job that you want to keep working on? Are you interested in new parts of technologies? Like you said, every conference is a new technology. Is it
Hmm.
any new technologies that spark your interest to learning a little bit more? What does the future look like for you?
To be honest, I don't have a good answer
Mhm.
for that.
Yeah, that's okay.
I really enjoy what I do, so I can see myself doing it for a long time. Maybe in 10 years or so, I might consider doing a PhD. That idea that I had in my back of my head once I graduated on my master's, I put on a side, but I didn't throw away. So I wouldn't say that I would never do a PhD. Might have, but not now. I am very happy where I am right now. I want to continue doing this valuable work that I do, and let's see.
That no, that's I completely get it. Especially studying after so many years, you're like, "No, I need a breather. I need a
Yes.
give me a break from all this reading." And if you were to do a PhD, I know PhD, they're even more focused, even more of a niche. Do you have some topics in mind that of things that are interesting to you for a PhD?
To be honest, I don't. I think, as I told you, like power systems isn't alive organism.
Mhm.
So if I decided to do a PhD 10 years from now, who knows what the technology will be. Like I remember when I started my master's, I wanted to work with hydropower plants because this is the biggest thing in Brazil. And I end up doing machine learning for electric cars, which has nothing to do with hydropower. So if I change my hat in 2 years, I don't
Yeah.
wanna I don't wanna say what I wanna study now
No,
because in
yeah.
10 years it might be.
And talking a little bit about like the learning and aspect of it, I know AI is huge everywhere in the
Mhm.
world. Is that something that is being implemented at all into power systems?
Yes, but I don't think it's in the same rate as in other
Mhm.
sectors. Probably like where you work, it's much more used than where we work. Power systems, there's a lot of things we don't see, right? Like you don't see energy flow. So you can train a machine, but I think you still need a lot of engineering judgment. So I'd be curious to see how this will change with things evolving. But still, there's not that much, at least with my type of.
No, that's super interesting. That is something that I always have in the back of my mind. Like you said, my industry, yeah, AI is huge. AI is everywhere. We're trying to use it everywhere. But it's really cool to see like the different perspectives of like every kind of engineer have a different expectation of what AI is gonna look like or how do you guys are using it right now. So that is awesome. Um, from all of the years, kind of like finishing up our conversation a little bit, from everything, all of your experience, you have such an amazing experience of different countries, undergrad, masters, different types of jobs that you did. What are some of the lessons that you learned in your life that you wanted to share with everyone that's listening to it today?
I think that learning to adapt to new situations is a very important skill that I learned with this transition of countries. In Brazil, it can be very expensive and talk loud. And here in the US, people are not like that. So it can be misinterpreted. So I had to adapt a little bit myself when I'm talking to people from other country. So I think this is a very nice skill to have. Learning another language, that is also, I would recommend to anyone, even if you're not going to use it on a day-to-day basis. I think if you learn another language, it opens doors for an entire new culture and more music, more movies, more types of study that you can do, and also trains your brain a lot. Also, don't be afraid to take chances. So I took my chance moving to another state in Brazil, and then I took my chance applying to a master's, not knowing if I would be accepted. I took a chance applying to a job, and in the end, everything worked out. So don't be afraid of that. And for people that are studying engineering school, don't give up in the first semesters if you feel that it's getting so difficult because it's not.
I love that one, and I laugh because it's so true.
Yeah,
So true. I think the first whole year, everyone is just looking at each other like, "Why am I here? Why am I doing this? Why is this so
exactly. And
hard?"
sometimes you're like 17, 18, you're still a kid, and
Literally.
you were put in these adult roles. And yeah,
No, I love that one. That one is so true. It's like, it's hard. And it's not gonna get that much easier neither. Okay, the classes are gonna be challenging, but it's worth it at the end. I think all the hard but fun years. I That's kind of how I look into college. It was really hard,
yes,
but it teaches you so much, not just
so much.
classes and for professional growth, but personal growth as well. And like you said, if you go into college being a kid, but then you get out more mature, you get out actually being an adult now. You're not like that little kid anymore. You learn how to grow personally, how to grow professionally, how to grow fully in your whole life. Is such really important years of your life, no matter what you study, what university you decide going to. But yeah, if you go into a STEM school, stay strong. We all go through
Yeah,
it. It's really hard. We all want to quit every single day. It's okay. That's funny. But I also love the other 2 points that you mentioned too of learning a new language. It opens a crazy amount of doors. Once I moved to the US, I was in high school, so I was a little bit younger. Learning English and now having those 2 languages and trying to learn Spanish now, it opens paths that you can never see before. It
yes,
opens, like you said, the different culture, different country opportunities, different everything, things that wasn't even in your mind at first.
yes. The world is so big,
It is.
why be restricted to
Yeah, the
just
world
your
is
comfort zone.
huge. The world is huge. So many countries, so many languages, so many cultures, so many people. And learning a little bit also about the different cultures and people and where do people come from and how they see things differently. That's why I love traveling to different countries and just kind of learning and seeing it. It's awesome. And then also the point of just taking the opportunities head on, basically. It's like you go for it. Apply for those positions, apply for those degrees, move countries. Just apply. Like I said in the beginning too, like know you already have, but you don't know if you're gonna get a yes. And if you do get a yes, you don't know what doors that yes is actually gonna open up to. So I love that you brought up all those lessons that you learned and how you had this amazing story and this amazing experience, honestly. I just want to thank you so much for being part of the podcast, for sharing your full story, which is so unique. And I learned so much in this whole hour, which has been lovely. I love learning new things every single day from people. So it's been super fun. Just thank you again, honestly, for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. This is so fun. I hope I can inspire more young ladies to go on STEM.
Yeah.
Electrical engineer is still a course that there is not many
Uh-huh.
girls. I remember my undergrad, I think in a class of 50, we were five. So electrical engineer, women can do it. It's so nice. If
Yeah.
you if you get into it, you're gonna love it. I
No,
promise.
I love that. And the biggest thing too that I'm learning from this conversation as well is if you're a woman, an electrical engineer might be something that maybe you're a little bit interested in. Go talk to an electrical engineer and you're gonna see the passion and the fire and how they geek out about all this stuff. And I think it's just an energy that it fills you up a little bit.
Yeah.
And if it's something that you're interested in, just like you said, yes, there's not a lot of us. fully in the whole STEM world, right? But you're able to do it. You're capable of doing it. Um, and it's so cool. Just so cool to see more women, especially in a degree like that. So yeah, just thank you again. And also thank you to everyone that is listening to this episode. More episodes of Amazing Women in STEM is going to keep coming every other Tuesday for you guys. If you enjoyed this talk, just please just follow, subscribe, all the social medias, all the details, all the fun stuff will be down in the description. And I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Bye for now.